Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of the Day or Night in the Desert podcast. Before we get started, we just want to remind everybody to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss any of our great content. And we have a very, very special surprise for you guys today. He's a really great friend of mine, a great friend of ours both on this podcast. And he is a fellow University of Utah Ute, a former University of Utah basketball player, and a former professional basketball player, played in Europe for several years, and is now hosting a commentary show on Good Kind Network. He helped start it with Mike Goodkind, who works for the Utah Jazz and other organizations. And so I just want to welcome our friend and our guest for today, Parker Van Dyke. Parker, say hi to us.
What's up, boys? Thank you for having me on. Honored to be on the show and to be talking some ball with you guys. So thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, no problem.
We really appreciate Parker being here. And before we get started here, I want to let everyone know to go out and follow Good Kind Network on Instagram. They do a really good job with their sports content, and Parker has done some great things in the world of basketball on both the collegiate and professional level, and now obviously with his commentary business. And so we want to just give him a shout out for that. Go follow them if you haven't. They do a lot of great work with high school sports. But anyway, to get into our content for today, we're going to talk about the Final Four. And we're going to talk about some March Madness stuff. Parker, I know you've been paying attention to that quite a bit. So tell us what you're kind of thinking about March Madness so far.
Well, March Madness is always a fun time of the year, kind of regardless how the tournament goes, whether there's a ton of upsets or like a bunch of surprises or, just kind of the best teams with the biggest brands dominate. Either way, I think it's the greatest tournament in all of sports. So it's always super enjoyable to watch, super enjoyable to fill out brackets, and you kind of just got to embrace it all. You embrace the heartache of when your bracket doesn't do well, and you embrace the success of your brackets, and it's been a great tournament. We've got 4 really high level teams left in the Final Four here, so I'm excited for this weekend.
Tell us a little bit about your background, what your childhood goals, and how did you go into becoming a college basketball player?
Well, I born and raised in Salt Lake City, just like you guys. So we got some Salt Lake neighborhood kids right here, all 3 of us. So, born and raised in Salt Lake, grew up a huge sports fan, specifically University of Utah. And I loved playing sports from an early age. I come from a family where it was a big part of our family, big part of my brother's lives. So I grew up playing basketball, baseball, football, loved it all. Basketball kind of took over once I got to middle school, high school age, and that's where I kind of made a goal in my life where I wanted to play college basketball. And specifically, I kind of always wanted to play for the U. Growing up, going to Rice Eccles Stadium and going to the Huntsman Center, always envisioned myself playing for Utah. And so I made a goal at a young age to do that, and I kind of aligned the rest of my life to be able to fulfill that goal. And so that went from trying to live the right way off the court, also putting in the time on the court and try to surround myself with great coaches and great teammates that would help me accomplish that. And, luckily just had some great people around me, great family as well, that helped prepare me and lay the path for me to play college basketball and kind of fulfill the dream to play for the Running Utes. And so that was an amazing experience that I still miss to this day. I've had a great professional career and it's been a lot of fun, but there's nothing better than college basketball, especially playing for the Utes. So it was a great experience.
Is there a difference in your preparation for a bigger game like a conference tournament or a smaller game? What does that look like, and how do you know when you are fully prepared?
I think all the great players, preparation is key. That's what really can separate good from great players is the amount of preparation you put into a game. You try to approach every game the same, but the reality is the big games just have a little bit more to it. So conference tournament games, rivalry games, championship type games, your focus and your preparation just gets heightened in those moments. And for me, whenever I felt prepared, I just always made sure that I was getting, I would try to have good practices as from a team perspective, try to get extra work individually on my own craft, on my own skills. And then one thing that I think a lot of non-athletes or people who haven't played at a high level underestimate is like knowing the scouting report, knowing who you're playing, knowing who you're guarding, the tendencies of the other players and other teams, and watching film on them. That is a huge part of high-level basketball. I mean, especially at this time of the year when bodies are breaking down. You've had a lot of basketball being played. This is both professional and college. So much of your time, the majority of your time, isn't really actually spent on the court because you have to save yourself for the game. So a lot of time preparation is spent in the film room. And that is something the players who can grasp that and be really dialed in that aspect are usually the ones that are most prepared, and usually those are the teams that win these big games.
So kind of tell us, kind of based on that, because you obviously, you touched on, like, you had this goal, you played at your dream school, you were able to, you kind of aligned your life so that you could accomplish this one goal that you had. And I think a lot of these college athletes, who are, especially the guys who are playing high level college basketball, they have to have like a central focus. They have to have like a central goal. And so, kind of going into a Final Four, they've obviously put themselves in a position where they're playing for a team that can get to this point. What do you think their primary focus should be? And kind of just, how would you go about, if you were playing in the Final Four today, how would you go about navigating that as a player in this moment?
Well, you can't look ahead. You can't look beyond what's right in front of you. So all four of these teams, you can't think about a national championship game. Right now, you got to think about the opponent right in front of you. And you just go all in on that. The beauty of these Final Four as well is now to this point, nothing matters that's happened in the past. So all the games that happened previously, all of those matchups you've played in, that's all in the past. It's irrelevant right now. And so now all you're focusing on is just this game right in front of you. And when I was a player, especially at Utah, what we tried to do is we tried to shorten the game up, because sometimes it can be pretty intimidating as a player to think of beating a team throughout the whole game. You think of a whole 40-minute basketball game. That can be kind of intimidating because it's so long. But at Utah, what we would try to do is we would just try to win every 4 minutes, because after every 4 minutes, there's a media timeout. And so we just try to chop the game up and shorten the game into like 4-minute increments. And we were just trying to win every 4 minutes. So we win the first 4 minutes, you win the second 4 minutes. Okay, maybe you lose the third 4 minutes, but let's win the last one of the first half, things like that. If you kind of chop up the game in smaller bite-sized pieces, kind of like that, it allows you to just focus right on the task at hand and not to get too far ahead of yourself. And those are the teams that can do that and just win those 4-minute games in the middle of the games that have success. And it also creates this idea of like this next play mentality where teams can play really bad for maybe the first 2 or 3 4-minute segments, but you just move on and let's just focus on winning the next 4 minutes. And we saw that in UConn Duke in the Elite Eight, where UConn really got beat up in the whole second half. But I'm sure their mentality coming out of the second half was just like, hey, we're down 19. Let's just win the next 4 minutes and let's go from there. And so those are the teams that are able to kind of shorten the game up, simplify the game a little bit. Those are the teams that tend to have success in big games.
How much does your confidence level influence the outcome, and how do you prevent being cocky or overconfident while still believing you can achieve a national championship?
That is a very tough balance that I think a lot of players have to deal with, this balance between being confident but not being arrogant. Because you need to be confident. If you don't believe in yourself and if you don't believe you're capable of playing in a Final Four or winning a national championship, you won't be able to. But you also don't want to be so arrogant that you lack humility and you lack respect for your opponent. And so it's this balance that players at a high level are constantly juggling, where you want to be confident, but you also want to have be realistic about yourself and also have respect for the people you're playing. And Coach K, who I played for at the University of Utah, used to always say, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. And so my advice to these players going into this Final Four game, like, you should have the utmost belief in yourself and in your team, because any of these 4 teams can win a national championship. And you have to believe that first from within. And if you can do that first, that sets the stage to potentially go on a run and win a national championship. But if there's any doubt in yourself or your team or the confidence level, that you're already setting yourself up for failure. And same thing on the other way. Like if you already doubt and disrespect the opponent you're playing, you're overlooking them, that also is a recipe for disaster as well. So that's a great question, because you're always trying to balance this confidence and arrogance as an athlete.
Well, Parker, we've talked a lot about kind of traits that go into like a great team and great athletes. I liked what you said about the Elite Eight with Duke and UConn. You know, UConn, they looked undersized a little bit compared to Duke. A lot of people were kind of predicting Duke to win. I know I had Duke in my Final Four, and UConn kind of busted that. But I really liked how UConn persevered through all that adversity. And they're down double digits at halftime. And they just came out in the second half and kind of took it a play at a time and just said, hey, we're going to go down and we're going to see what we can do here over the course of a 20-minute time span. Obviously, there was some mistakes made and some bumps in that road, but ultimately it led to them getting a win and them being in position to play in the Final Four. So kind of what trait do you think is most important, both in a player and in a team going into a Final Four? What trait is most important to achieving the outcome that they want to achieve?
Well, I would first say experience is a huge thing. And a lot of these kids, you know, a lot of these teams are pretty new in terms of personnel, but the coaches have a lot of experience. So thinking about UConn, you think of like Dan Hurley and his experience. He's won 2 national championships in the last 3 years. You know, Alex Karaban, he struggled in the Elite Eight, but he's one of the leaders on the team. He's potentially going to have one of the best college careers of all time. Like if he can win another national championship, that'd be 3 national championships in 4 years. So experience is a big thing that is key in these situations. I also think players and teams that are really coachable, or who are willing to take the game plan that the coaches have created, internalize it, and then go out and execute it. Those are big things, because really in these big games, what it comes down to is teams are going to make mistakes. Players are imperfect, teams are imperfect, coaches are imperfect. But it's who can make the least amount of mistakes will win. And so being coachable, being disciplined, staying focused, executing game plan, these are things that you need to watch for in these big games, because those teams who can do that the best and make the least amount of mistakes are the teams that are going to win. And one thing I want to mention about UConn really quick, going back to that Duke game, something that they probably had in the second half is they probably felt like they had nothing to lose. They were already the underdog to Duke. Duke was supposed to win. They were down big. So they were playing with this nothing to lose mentality. And when a team plays with nothing to lose, that's when they can be the most dangerous. And so keep an eye on UConn for the rest of the tournament, again, in the game versus Illinois and the potential of the national championship, because they're viewed as the underdog of these Final Four teams. And I can see Dan Hurley using that and utilizing that to his advantage, to motivating his team and getting them to play with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder as underdogs. And playing with a nothing-to-lose mentality, because nobody expected them necessarily to be here this year. So that's a key factor, I think, going into this Final Four. And even though no one should really underestimate UConn, I mean, they've won 2 of the last 3 national championships. So, but that's a key factor, I think, going into the weekend.
How should the teams that are playing in the Final Four prepare for the atmosphere? Should they consider changing their game plan, or should they just keep it simple?
Well, I don't know if there's any way to, unless you've played in a game like this, it's hard to prepare for the atmosphere. This is probably, for a lot of these guys who haven't played in this level game, this will be the biggest game of their lives. So there's no way to prepare for that in terms of like practicing like the atmosphere. But you do have to have this idea of like having confidence in the things that you do great and the things that you've done to get you to this point. So you don't have to throw out there's no new game plan. All 4 teams are very well coached and are very good teams. And so they do need to create a little bit of like, hey, we're going to just continue to do great what we've done to get here. But then you do have to have some specifics, because you're playing specific opponents. And so there might be some specific adjustments based off who you are playing. And so it's this combination again of like, we're going to focus on us and do what we do great and do what we've gotten us here. But we also got to make sure we got to give attention to who we're playing, because based on who you're playing is going to differ how you guard them and how you attack them based off their weaknesses and their strengths.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the things too, because all of us have played basketball on some level, and I think one of the things that is important to focus on is no matter what the atmosphere is, the court's the same size, the hoop's still 10 feet tall, you can still game plan around the things that you've already learned growing up playing basketball. And obviously, there's going to be nuances with regards to, you're playing somebody, as you alluded to, how are we going to guard this team? How are we going to defend this matchup? But, going back to what you've already done, knowing that, you're here for a reason, that you've prepared all year long and all season long to be in this position, to be here in the Final Four. It takes beating good teams. It takes a lot of hard work throughout the season in order to make that happen. And so I think it's important to kind of remember what you've already accomplished and remember what you've already achieved in these moments. Parker, before we wrap up here, I just wanted to ask, what is your prediction for the Final Four? Who do you think is going to come out on top, and what leads you to believe that?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've gone back and forth on this, and I'm still not quite sure what I think is going to happen. I do think the Arizona-Michigan game that has a chance to be the best game of the whole tournament. I mean, those are probably the two teams that have probably looked the best in this tournament. I think Arizona is the best team, but I didn't pick them to win it all. I picked them to lose in the Elite Eight in my bracket. I just never seem to trust them. This is their first Final Four since 2001. So they've had a lot of talented teams since then, but they've just never seemed to get over the hump. I will say this team does seem a little bit different with Tommy Lloyd at the helm. And so I do pick Arizona to beat Michigan in that first, in the Final Four there. As far as UConn, Illinois, like I said about UConn earlier, well, first, I do love Illinois. I think Brad Underwood has done a great job for them. Keaton Wagler is an elite freshman. He's their leading scorer. They are the tallest team in the country, so they do have the size to match with Terrace Reed Jr. of UConn. So I really like Illinois, but this is Brad Underwood's first Final Four game where it's Dan Hurley's, third in 4 years. So I like UConn on that side, and I like this idea of them galvanizing around this shot that Braylon Mullins made, where I almost see that propelling them forward. Like, they weren't even supposed to be here. They should have lost to Duke. They win on an immaculate play. And sometimes wacky things like that in sports will propel a team forward to help them play even beyond their ability. So I'm going to take UConn over Illinois, and I'm going to make a surprise guest pick here. I'm actually going to choose UConn over Arizona in the national championship. I might be crazy. I think I might be the only one saying that. But I'm going to choose UConn to win it all this year, which would mean a lot. That would give Dan Hurley his third championship in 4 years. That would, in terms of a legacy, that would put him up there with guys like Jim Calhoun and Jay Wright and Coach K and Roy Williams. I mean, he'd be in some rare air in terms of coaches. And then a guy like Alex Caravan, like we mentioned earlier, he would have one of the greatest college basketball careers of all time for sure if he was going to get that one. So I'm going to be a little bold here on the Day or Night in the Desert podcast, and I'm going to say UConn wins it all over Michigan.
Parker, I don't think that's crazy at all. I mean, we've seen a championship culture being built there over the course of the last 4 years. And I picked Michigan to win my bracket, but I think UConn's a sleeper team. I mean, and maybe they're not even a sleeper team, because I think if you win 3 out of 4 national championships, or you're in a position to win 3 out of 4 national championships, you definitely deserve the benefit of the doubt. Dan Hurley's built a great culture there. Alex Caravan's been a big part of that culture, and they certainly have the experience and wherewithal to get it done. They've been there before. I'm frankly a little nervous. UConn's going to spoil my bracket, to be honest with you. I think they just have what it takes, and if you have what it takes to beat Duke on that stage, in that situation, I think that could propel you to great things. So, Zach, just give me your final thoughts on the Final Four.
I like that prediction a lot. I think Parker has a good idea. I think UConn is a sleeper team, but I have them prevailing. Even though I picked Duke, I think UConn's going to go all the way. And before we wrap up, I have one more quick question for you. How do you stay present in the moment you have prepared for your whole life? And what advice would you give to these teams as they go into the Final Four?
Well, like I said kind of earlier, and you just mentioned, like, staying present, staying in the moment, and just kind of being where your feet are. Don't overlook your opponent. Don't overlook the game. Don't look ahead. Just being in the moment, and then I think there's two parts of preparation. One is putting in the time. So you put in the time in practice, you put in time in the film room, and then you got to have confidence in that preparation. And so going to the game, and just if you can say to yourself, you can look yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, I've done everything I can do to prepare for this game individually and from a team perspective. If you can look yourself in the mirror and say that to yourself and be honest with yourself, then you can go live with the consequences of the game. And you can go play with no regrets and with ultimate freedom, knowing that, like, hey, I've controlled what I can control. I'm prepared, and I have confidence in that. And I can go out and let the chips fall where they fall. And the sad reality is, in the games like this, there's 4 teams. There's only 2 winners on the first couple games, and then there's only 1 winner at the end of the day. Only 1 team can win. So that means there's going to be 3 really good teams who don't win a national championship this weekend. And it's not going to be due to lack of preparation. It shouldn't be due to lack of preparation or lack of skill or lack of talent. That's just the nature of it. There's always going to be 1 winner. So I would say stay present, have confidence in your preparation. And if you can be confident in your preparation and know that you've done everything you can to prepare for the game, then there's no reason not to go out into the game and play free and play loose, play confident, and also enjoy it. Like it's so rare to be able to play in a Final Four. And so go enjoy every moment of the experience, because it's something for the rest of your life you'll be able to talk about your experience playing in the Final Four.
Well, yeah, that's a great point. I think it's so important to just be present in the moment and to, I mean, obviously be prepared, but don't take the moment too seriously. Just enjoy what you have in front of you. Do the best you can with it. And, obviously, Parker, we just want to thank you so much for coming on today. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to add to what we've talked about, or anything you want to say before we hop off here?
Here's a couple fun facts heading into the conference or heading into the Final Four tournament I wanted to share. So the only time 2 Big Ten teams have played in the national championship, and so we have a chance for that to happen this weekend with Illinois and Michigan potentially playing the national championship. Only time that happened was 50 years ago, when in 1976, when Indiana defeated Michigan in the national championship. That Indiana team was actually the last college basketball team to go completely undefeated, win a national championship. Another thing to keep in mind, Illinois and Connecticut played each other 2 years ago in the Elite Eight, and that was the game where Connecticut went on the 30-0 run, that famous 30-0 run. So Illinois is looking to get some revenge there. The last thing I would say, here's the thing that's so dangerous about Arizona is Arizona can win in a variety of different ways. And so Arizona in their game versus Purdue, they became the first team ever to score 60 points in the paint with 30 free throws in a tournament game. So they can just beat you down in the paint and with their physicality, and they don't have to rely on the 3-point shot, which is rare in today's game. So this is going to be a big time Final Four. I think it could go a variety of different ways, which is fun, and it's what the madness is all about. So I'm excited to watch it. And boys, thank you for having me on. Big fan of the show, a fan of what you guys are doing. Keep it up, and let me know if I can ever be on the show again.
We thank you for your time, Parker. You're the man.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, we'll certainly at some point take you up on that offer to be on the show again. We love having you. We love talking to you, and thanks for being our friend and for being a part of this show. So appreciate it so much. Thank you guys.